Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa. It's just the two of us tonight. Just the two of us. You can sing along if you want, Matt, because I turned your microphone on. You don't.
But which microphone? Oh, look.
Yeah, see? Look. Well, because it had a big number 4 on it. So I figured it out. I was able to jump out there at me. These headphones sound weird. I haven't worn these ones in a long time. Do I sound okay? I'm not too loud, am I?
Nope.
All right.
Fine.
It's weird because these have been in my bag and I never use them. I use those other ones. And so I threw these on and said, I don't feel like walking into the other room and getting my regular headphones. And now it sounds super weird because these are like way more like technically
Are they like noise canceling or whatever?
I don't have the noise canceling on, but they're still very noise canceling. And they're also super sensitive. Like I'm picking up that fan behind me. So, yeah. But we'll be fine. We are here to talk about the paranormal, not about our headphones, which we do each and every Saturday night. It's just myself and Matt Costa tonight because Moniz is, I don't know where Moniz is. He didn't tell us where he was going to be tonight. But Stephanie's in San Antonio, Texas. They went to the Alamo yesterday. I know what you're going to say.
Did they visit the basement?
I don't think so. There's no basement in the Alamo.
Are you sure?
That's what Jan Hooks told me. But
we should call her right now and
like drop what you're doing. Go back to the Alamo.
Are the stars that bright?
Look, right. She's gonna call in from a payphone. I'm in Texas. We're like, no, you're not. Come on. No, really, I am. The stars at night. But no, she's down in Texas with John Brightman and Porter. I don't get invited to these conferences. No. They claim they don't want me.
Are you not allowed in Texas?
No, I'm as far as I know, I should be allowed in Texas. I've never been in Texas. I've flown over Texas. I've always wanted to go to Texas, but I don't know what it is.
I haven't heard too many ghost stories from Texas area.
Yeah, I've heard some.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure there's one of those haunted Texas books.
Yeah. I mean, Galveston is a town that has a lot of paranormal activity because that is a town that was decimated by a hurricane in the early 1900s. So a lot of Galveston has been dealing with ghosts due to that hurricane. But I'm sure there's probably quite a few out there. There was a lot of the different things that's gone on over Texas's history. 6 flags over Texas. They've been under 6 different flags. So they've seen a lot of battles. They've seen a lot of fighting. They've seen a lot of unique things that have gone on in their history with the Mexican border wars and all that stuff. So I'm sure that they've probably found some pretty good haunted places. But it's Saturday night at a paranormal convention, so they're not ghost hunting. They're probably all at a bar somewhere partying, doing karaoke,
probably
all that stuff. Well, we're here doing the show, and we'll be joined a little bit later on by our guest tonight, Shane Sirois. He'll be joining us to talk about his work in the paranormal field. We'll also hopefully be checking in with Christy over at the Oliver House tonight because next weekend is our big Bridgewater Triangle Mysterious Middleborough event, and there are still some tickets available. So if you want to join us for that, definitely go to SpookySouthCoast.com right now and get your tickets. But we're going to be investigating 3 different locations next Saturday. The Oliver House, the Mayflower Masonic Lodge, and the Middleborough Town Hall. The 3 most famous haunts in Middleborough. We will be checking them all out in one night, and you can get your tickets now at SpookySouthCoast.com. Last week I had an event. Everybody else was scattered all over the place. I think Moniz last week was in Salem for Paroween. I think that was last weekend. I don't think it's this weekend. So that means that Moniz and I were like just a couple miles away from each other, but just doing completely different things last Saturday. We were at the Parson Barnard House in North Andover, which people had seen on Haunted Towns, and it looked like a really cool place, and people had been asking us to do some North Shore events. So we put this together with the Parson Barnard House, and it was a small group, just about 20 people because it's just a house. And we were pretty, pretty low key, pretty laid back event. A lot of everybody there had experience pretty much, so we didn't really worry too much about having it be very structured. And we kind of just let people do their own thing. So while we're doing the event, we walked up to the cemetery, which is a short walk from the house, and that's where the Barnards are buried, including Thomas Barnard. And we started looking over some of the gravestones of the Barnard family, and we realized that Thomas Barnard, whose house we were investigating, had passed away on October 13th of 1718. So we were only about a week. We were literally a week after, 8 days after the anniversary of his death. But we also realized that next year, October 13th, 2018, will be a Saturday night. And that will be the 300th anniversary of the passing of Thomas Barnard. So we are actually, I've already talked to the caretaker, Greg, and we have booked the house for October 13th, 2018. So we will have an event there on that date. So this is the first time that we've ever announced an event a year in advance. But we secured that date because we were making some great connections in that house, and we want to go back and help. Because the whole thing with Thomas Barnard is people have tied him into the Salem witch trials as being one of the accusers. And in all actuality, he was trying to calm down some of the witch hysteria. So he's gotten a bad rap over the centuries. So we were trying to help with that reputation. So that's what we're going to do next year, is we're going to observe the 300th anniversary of his passing by reaching out to him both at the cemetery and at the house. So it'll be a while before we put those tickets up for sale, but just keep that date open on your calendar if you want to join us for that. But so there's stories that at one point this house was used as a boarding school for boys, and there was a teacher, I forget the last name, but his first name was Simeon, and he was not very nice to the boys. He would beat them and abuse them. And so at one point we're all in the attic. Before we even got to the attic, one of the stories is that something in that house will throw pennies at you. And so they have a couple of pennies that they keep up on a dresser in that room. So I had my flashlight next to where the pennies are, so that, if anything went over there and tried to touch the pennies, maybe it would set the flashlight off. And I made sure I secured the flashlight so that it wouldn't go anywhere. And we are trying to coax whatever's there to throw the pennies at us. And there were two pennies. There's a penny from the year 2000 and one penny from the year, I think it was 1979 or whatever. And so the older penny, I took it in my hand and I had everybody kind of hold it for a few minutes to charge it up to see if maybe we could pass off some electricity, some energy onto it. And then we put that up on the dresser, and we said if it throws a penny, it'll be interesting to see which penny actually gets thrown. Well, as we're sitting there trying to coax it to throw this penny at us, all of a sudden my flashlight comes on for a second and then just gets knocked off the dresser, which was kind of cool. But we're trying to recreate it, see, did it roll? Is it possible that it just rolled off after a couple seconds? But the fact that the light came on first, maybe something touched it. So anyway, so we're up in the attic because I said, let's find a nice quiet place where we can sit in pitch blackness and try and just kind of feel out the house. And so as we're up there, it was really strange because you could feel some sort of a tension in the air. And you know how when you sit in a dark room, after a while, your eyes start to adjust? And then you can see a little bit in the dark. Obviously, we're not going to see well in the dark, but you can see something, right, Matt? You know what I mean,
right?
Like after a while, if you hold your hand up in front of your face, you can see your hand,
right? I mean, when the lights go out at first, you're kind of blinded, but after time, your eyes get used to it.
Yeah, you adjust, your pupils dilate, you can see a little bit better in the dark. Well, this was so weird because our eyes never adjusted. We could never. Like we were holding our hands up in front of our faces and couldn't see it. It's like the atmosphere was that thick, and we were having shadows that we were kind of walking by us, and it's like, how come we can see those but we can't see our hands? It was just really strange. And so I pulled out EchoVox and we started communicating with the boys that were kept up in that attic, and they started telling us their names, and we're talking to William and I forget the other names, but I just remember William coming through quite frequently. And we asked them, are you afraid? And they telling us they're afraid. And we're like, what are you afraid of? And Simeon comes out of the EchoVox. And it came out of the EchoVox on multiple occasions. I'm like, well, that's really weird because that's not a common name either. I don't know too many people that have been named Simeon, except the quarterback for the Broncos, but that's his last name. So anyway, I come up with the idea because, we're getting all this activity going on. I said to one of the women, I said, well, you're a girl. Why don't you try? If Simeon's the kind of guy that wants to beat up kids, I'm sure he wouldn't take too kindly to a woman kind of calling him out. So one of the women that were there starts calling him out, and immediately he just called her a bitch, which I thought was pretty strong and profound. And it was just, this went on for, over an hour. And
so
it was just
the name was
crazy
Simeon?
intense.
Or?
That was his first name. I can't remember his last name. Like historically.
Oh.
And that was the name of the person that was the teacher. And then to have that also come through the Echo Box was pretty cool.
That is interesting.
Yeah, we had all kinds of weird experiences happening up there. But it's definitely a great place. And so, like I said, we're going to go back for the 300th anniversary of Thomas Barnard's passing on October 13th, 2018. So keep that date open on your calendar, and we'll have information as the date gets closer. But like I said, next Saturday night, that's Mysterious Middleborough. And, we're just getting the plug out of the way. Christy's going to try and check in with us in the next few minutes from the Oliver House, just to kind of let us know about all the interesting things that have been going on there over the last couple of weeks. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing there. And then Shane Sirois will join us in just a few moments also to talk about his work in the paranormal. And then just for a few moments at the beginning of the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to have a conversation with the... We're going to talk to Kevin Raper, who is the son-in-law of R. Gary Patterson. And we lost Gary a few months ago. We had an episode where we paid tribute to Gary, and of course, it's still very raw that we lost one of our idols and one of our favorite people in the paranormal world. But they've found a way to keep his work alive, and so they're going to join us to talk about this new project that they have, which I think is great. And I've heard little bits and pieces of it, and I think people are really going to like it. So they'll join us in just a few moments, a little bit later on in this show. And then we want to have them come back for a full show, or at least part of a show, to talk a little bit more about Gary's legacy and some of the ways that they plan on keeping his work alive, because there's not enough people doing what Gary did. Putting in the work, putting in the time, making the personal connections to get these stories about rock and roll legends and curses. I mean, just look at a lot of the paranormal stuff. People just go online, they find things, they find stories, they find firsthand accounts, whatever, and they'll write about it, but they don't take the time to get to know the people and to get the real inside information and to convey the emotions that are involved. And that's something that Gary always did. So like I said, we'll find out a little bit more about what they have in the works and how they're keeping our Gary Patterson's memory alive. So that'll be a little bit later on in the show, just after the 11 o'clock news. And you can call in at any point, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. And of course, the chat room is open at SpookySouthCoast.com, Spooky TV. You can watch the show as you listen. Is there what was I just going to ask you about? I don't know. You don't know what I was going to ask you. Just went out of my head. Talking about the live stream.
Right. In the chat room.
Yes, talking about the chat room.
All the ways that you can interact.
All the ways you can interact.
Spooky Live.
The app. We have the app. Download the free app. And I feel like there's something that I'm missing here that I wanted to bring up. Oh, I know what I want to talk to you about. I wanted to bring it up on the show and publicly point out.
What's this?
The spooky clips. These things are taking off.
Right.
And spooky clips are, if you haven't gone to our YouTube account, if you go to the YouTube account, you'll see Matt takes out some of the best moments of the interview, some of the best moments of the show, makes little smaller clips of the show. So, of course, we want you to watch the entire program, but if you don't watch the entire program, or if you don't have time to sit and watch it and you just want to get a feeling of what it was about, these clips are great. Well, these spooky clips, I want to put the word out to everybody out there. They're also very shareable. So take those clips and put them up on your Twitter page, put them up on your Facebook, share them, get the word out, help us promote Spooky South Coast, but also, you might know somebody that is interested in weird news stories, or somebody who's had a UFO experience that might want to hear about somebody else's, and it's a way to kind of give them a little bit of information and help without them having to sit and listen to an entire show. So Matt does a fantastic job of making the clips, and we just want you to help spread them around. That's what I've been meaning. I've been meaning to promote those clips for a couple of shows now. So, all right. Well, we have joining us on the line, I believe we have Christy on the line now. Christy, is that you?
It is I.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I think you're breaking up just a little bit, so I don't know if I'm losing your signal or not.
Christy, we don't have to break.
Hear me okay?
We don't have to break up. We can stay friends.
Well, I'd like for us to kind of stay together. Breakups can be nasty sometimes, and I like to be a happy person.
You are a very happy person. How's things going over there tonight?
It's been, as always, a very interesting night. I'm going to tell you the winner of the night is the phantom dog poop smell that we have smelled consistently off and on all night long across both groups of people who came out for the tour tonight. So the dog's been hot and heavy in the house tonight. We've had a lot of folks in the house that have taken some interesting photographs. They've been really snap happy with the cell phones, which we encourage here at the Oliver House. And a lot of people have felt as if they've had their shirt tugged on by a small person, both upstairs and downstairs in some of the older kitchens.
Wow.
Well, and I got to tell you something. Do you remember how a few weeks ago when you were here, we had the picture kind of fly off the wall and break the pottery?
Yes, that was very intense.
Yes, it was. Well, we moved the picture, and of course the glass is all broken out of it, so it's nothing to break in the picture anymore. We moved the picture and put it in the hallway. Below the stairs, there's a nail, and we put it there and hung it up. And apparently they don't like it there either because it has come off the wall a few times.
Wow.
Yeah, so apparently we have really sucky taste in artwork.
Well, I mean, the photo's not, the picture's not that bad.
It's really not. It's kind of a warm, inviting picture, but apparently the energies that are here don't really care for it that much. And that's okay. But we had to test the theory and see if it was the picture or if it was the area that it was hung, in the old kitchen. But it seems to be that they just don't like the artwork.
Well, I mean, that was one of the more profound things that I've ever had happen because it was at the end of the night. It was after people had left. We were all just kind of sitting in the room. And there's no way that it was anybody stomping on the floor above us. There's no way it was anybody banging on a wall. When you have every person that's in the room every person that's in the building directly in your line of sight and something like that happens, there's no other word to explain it than paranormal, especially when we went in there and tried to figure out how it could have happened. And it would have taken some sort of force reaching up underneath the picture and knocking it off the wall because of the way that it was hung.
Exactly. It's, this house, it's, and as anybody who's handling properties and doing tours, like Rise Up, for instance, I'm sure that they can understand this, and other teams in the area who handle, like, the Lizzie Borden house and things. Once you're in here for a long enough period of time, you almost become accustomed to the things that the house it does, or the energies do in the house. So it's kind of like second nature to you. But then sometimes, just sometimes, from time to time, they do something completely incredible. And that night with the picture, that was a completely incredible night. We continue to have things move around, like objects moving in front of us. So since the picture, we've actually had cat balls rolling around on the floor and lighting up. So they have their moments where they're really strong here in the house, and we're lucky enough that we're in it to be able to experience it and share it with people.
And so I know that you guys also just investigated the town hall too, right?
That's correct, yes. We were only there for about 3 hours. It was a very, very short period of time. But it was enough because while we were there and we were up in the main ballroom area, we had a lot of activity. We were sitting on the floor in the center of the ballroom, and you could hear the floor popping around you as if somebody was walking around you. You could feel the floor beneath you as if somebody was putting weight on it. We were actually able to, with our audio recorders, capture some phantom piano music. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. which is unusual, but it was a beautiful piece of audio that we walked away at the end of the night with that, we shared to the people who did ghost tours this weekend at the town hall. And people were just blown away by it. But we've got no explanation for it. There is a piano in the town hall, but at the time it was recorded, we were in the balcony and nobody was near the piano, but it was just like somebody was sitting there playing it.
Right. So you were kind of in the same room as the piano.
We were in the main ballroom.
But you're in a different section of it.
Yeah, we were up in the balcony that overlooks the ballroom.
Yeah, it's like a big auditorium type setup. So
yeah, it is.
You're able to see out below you, and you could see if anybody would be down there.
Exactly. Yes. Now, the town hall, what's interesting about that is people who don't even, believe in the paranormal or really go out to seek it or experience it, they have a lot of experiences there. One of the most recent that seems to be a similar story from each particular person that witnesses this is an apparition that's as solid as you and me. He has color about him. It's a man in work clothes, and he appears and he's just walking through. And I think one of the people thought at first it was like a janitor, but it's not. It seems to be possibly the energy of the man who actually constructed the town hall, and his name was, I think, Solomon Eaton.
Yes.
Who passed away of a heart attack before the hall was completed, right before it was completed. So there's also a little girl that's there on the balcony area primarily. You can hear her, walking around and playing and humming and singing. There's multiple energies down in the basement. The basement is really an interesting space. I think you actually had experience down there before, didn't you, Tim?
I did. That's where I communicated with Ed Warren's spirit through the Echo Vox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did a very, very short stint. I bet we were probably in the basement, maybe 10, 15 minutes the night we were there. We were upstairs most of the time. But while we were there, we caught some incredible audio of we opened a door, and this woman came through very clearly on our audio as if it was 30 years delayed. What that means, we're not quite sure. But you can hear our voices, and then you hear this other voice that is not any of the people that's down there come through very loud, just as a matter of factly, and make a comment when we open that door. So I think, when folks come out to the town hall, I think they're in for a real treat.
I think absolutely. And as I said, we still have some tickets available. If people want to get those tickets, they can do so at SpookySouthCoast.com. You can join in with us next Saturday night from Mysterious Middleborough. We're doing it to raise some money for the Oliver House restorations. You'll get to investigate the town hall. You'll get to investigate the Oliver House and also the Mayflower Masonic Lodge as well. And of course, we'll do the usual thing: pizza, dinner, and snacks and drinks and all that stuff too. And I think it's going to be a really. I'm just getting the feeling, Chrissy, it's going to be a really weird night.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. I can feel it kind of brewing. I think at all locations, there's a possibility that people are going to walk away and say, "Wow!" I mean, wow. Middleborough in general it's just an amazing place because it is a part of the Bridgewater Triangle. So, as you know from other towns, there seems to be just hot spots of this sort of activity. And these three locations that people are going to be able to go into are some of those major hot spots in this town. So it's worth it.
Absolutely.
It really is worth it.
Well, we look forward to seeing you next Saturday night, and I'm sure I'll talk to you before then.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I hope everybody has a great night there, and y'all make sure to get online and get your tickets. We are so excited to bring you here to experience the Oliver Estate.
Absolutely. And you stay safe tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night. That is Christy Parrish over at the Oliver House. And again, you can join us next Saturday night. Go to SpookySouthCoast.com if you want to take part in that. All right. I'm going to bring up our guest right now. Hold on. And of course, if you want to check out Shane's website, it's trueghost.com. He's been helping families and individuals for over 30 years. He has a rare 100% success rate at getting rid of nasty parasitic hauntings, which we're definitely going to talk about tonight. His understanding of the mechanics of what allows a haunt is untouched. He gets called in when investigators, demonologists, and clergy fall short in providing relief, and he has succeeded every time. Shane doesn't stop there. He's currently involved in several areas that have UFO sightings, Sasquatch sightings, and shadow people sightings. He's at the center of some of the biggest cases, and again, you can check out his website, trueghost.com, to find out more. And of course, we'll talk about some of these cases as well throughout the course of the discussion, but we welcome Shane Sirois to the show. Did I say it right, Sirois?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. See, and I was telling you kind of over Facebook that here on the south coast of Massachusetts, people take a lot of liberties with French names.
Yes.
So I've had multiple friends with the last name Dubois, and some are Dubois, some are Dubois, some are, even different combinations of that. So you can never be too
Benoit
sure.
versus Benoit,
Yeah, we have a lot of Benoits here, but no, we don't have any Benoits. We have Benoits.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's so strange. So I'm always very careful with the French names because you never know which way it's going to go. Well, for example, Jeff Belanger. Everybody knows Jeff Belanger in the paranormal, but in French it would be Belanger.
Right.
And in other places they pronounce it Bellinger. So all these different pronunciations for things.
Yep.
That's why I have a name that people can just butcher no matter where they are. It's not location specific. There's no dialect involved. It's always butchered. So you dealing with the type of hauntings that you deal with, dealing with parasitic hauntings. It's funny that we're talking to you now because this is a time of year when people are going out to different events, different haunted places. They're going out and kind of just trying to have a little bit of Halloween fun, and that Halloween fun can kind of turn around on people with the possibility of something latching onto them and following them home. I assume that a lot of the cases that you've dealt with probably have to do with people that have gone to these places looking for a thrill and come home with something that they didn't expect.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing with the use of the Ouija board. It's not the board that's the evil thing. A board's just a tool that focuses your attention on the possibility of an interaction. And when you give attention to the subject, you're opening yourself up because these parasitic entities need your attention. You give them something your attention, you're giving energy, and it's drawn towards that. And so, the next thing too is when people venture off into these situations, they don't want to obsess about that, about interaction, even though it's fun. You kind of got to be like, you got to kind of be open-minded, but you got to be level too, and you can't fear it. If there's an ounce of fear, even though we want that, it's kind of exciting for people, right? But that fear is also it's broadcast through your emotional frequency. So even if you're not acting afraid, these parasites know that you are, and you're going to become a target. It's a vulnerability that they look for. So the attention and the fear. So when you go off to a supposed local haunted place, I've had to deal with or help many people that got in trouble that way. Same thing, for the same reasons, the use of a Ouija board. And I've actually helped a lot of investigators who got into trouble. Some you guys might have even heard of, but I do it all behind the scenes and confidential and everything. But
sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I've helped out quite a few investigators that that were seasoned, but they found themselves in a little trouble.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing is you can have all the experience in the world with going into haunted places and feeling like you have a control of the situation, but we don't really know what it is that we're dealing with and what it's capable of. So even though you feel like you're in control, that control is probably a false illusion. And at any given time, things can go south pretty quickly. Yeah.
I mean, what I've years ago when I started this work, I unlearned everything I thought I knew, all the books I might have read. And growing up, at a very young age, my first paranormal experience was 41 years ago. And so going forward, it was just, in having a mechanical aptitude, it was trying to figure out what allows it, and I mean, not at a wicked young age, but as I got older, that was my purpose, was to kind of figure this out. And so I put in a process to identify trends, and I started connecting some dots and started to realize how these things operate and what initiates that haunt, what allows it to continue, what allows it to escalate. And so um, I've been doing this a long time, and I've helped thousands of people already, and in the way I've done it, once I connected those dots and kind of had an idea of what these things are going after, and I haven't failed one person, so I've been able to help every single person that's been afflicted by these parasites after, other people might have gone in after they called in their priests, or they had other groups in there who all kind of use the same types of tactics. Because that was another thing that I looked at when I started this work, is like, how come I'm going in after so many clergy, priests and stuff? How come I'm going in after so many groups? What are they doing differently than what I believe to be, the mechanics? And so I started to realize that they're basically using like paranormal against the paranormal. And what I do is I kind of go in there and I identify, the root cause, and I manipulate that. And so, and it might be different for different people, but there was a case that I did in Woonsocket, Rhode Island in 1998 that was actually, it was written about in the book and everything. But this guy was being attacked for 2 years solid, waking up in the middle of the night with this disfigured, he said, a hideous woman inches from his face. He'd just wake up, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, she'd be right in his face. And he actually went gray overnight after my first visit down there to do my initial, interview with him. And but first time I walked in, he goes, all right, he goes, something's up, because they were really acting up. And then about a half hour ago, they just got real quiet. They must know you're coming, And so we walked in the door, and as soon as we walked in, a lamp flew off his desk about 15 feet or so, and hit him in the leg. And he goes, see, that's what I'm talking about. I could tell by his reaction that he'd been dealing with much worse for a long period of time, because it didn't startle him. It was like, that was nothing compared to what he's been dealing with. So there was other investigators involved before me that went into the basement, and they all doubled over with earaches and migraines. They had to leave. He had his Roman Catholic priest come in, bless the home. It got much worse after that. He asked the guy to come back. The guy came, got to the door, and said, "I'm sorry, I can't go back in there." So he had invited another investigator from the local town, and this guy ended up hearing about me online, and he says, I really think that you can help me. Will you come down? I said, sure, absolutely. I said, but I want to make sure I'm not stepping on the toes of this other investigator, because I normally work alone. I'm willing to work with him, whatever it takes to help you, get you relief, because I could really tell this guy was traumatized and dealing with a lot. So, excuse me. So the guy agreed, and I agreed to work with him, and we went down, and it ended up being Paulino, who now is like a brother of mine. We're real close friends, and I co-host on his radio show quite often. But anyway, so what I asked this gentleman, because I need to kind of figure out what this parasite's feeding off of. So I asked him, how long have you lived here? He said, my girlfriend's lived here for 11 years. I've lived here for 6 years. I said, how long have you been being attacked? He said, only the last 2 years. I said, so something happened 2 years ago that changed your emotional state of being, or sent shock waves through this environment that changed things. I mean, it had to have been something dramatic that really lowered your emotional, state of being, or whatever, your frequency. Because I find it's like a two-way radio with these things. They need us at a certain frequency, if you will, or at a certain emotional state in order to connect with us. And that's how I treat it. I elevate people's emotions. I get them out of the spot that they're at, and it breaks the connection. These things just disappear. But now, so I said, what changed 2 years ago? He goes, actually, it all started 3 weeks after I got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And pancreatic cancer doesn't have a good, it's not a good thing. There's no good turnout with that. So he was put on meds. He was, because of the meds, he couldn't work, and who would want to anyways. And so he was at home, just doing nothing but soaking in negativity and just thinking about the fact that he's probably going to die. He was also a Vietnam vet, a hero, who witnessed his friends being blown up in front of him. So he had all these bad memories, and he was also a recovering alcoholic. He had been recovering for like 2 or 3 years, and also, the cancer thing and the Vietnam memory. So all this negative stuff, it lowered his emotional state of being, but it also exposed that vulnerability. Now he's vulnerable, and that's what these parasitic entities look for. So they they popped in and they just latched on, and they were absolutely tormenting and doing everything they could to keep him down and keep him where they wanted him. So there was another investigator that I brought there who was older than me and fooled me into thinking that he was much more experienced. I won't say his name, but he's off the scene anyway. But what he witnessed there, I mean, all kinds of things moving, but also like huge discharges in the basement. And I'm not talking about just like sparks or lights. I'm talking about things that looked like long gray ropes that were just flying through the basement. He got also surrounded by something, an energy, in freezing cold, and he wouldn't move for like a half hour. And finally, I cut ties with him. I said, "You can't do this work anymore. You got a paranoid personality for one, and these things gonna chase you. You can't go into one location without being attacked," because he was just the wrong type of person for this type of work. So
right, yeah.
He ended up forming his own little thing, getting his own website, and he this is a guy that had a very expensive home, lovely wife, great job. He lost everything, lost his wife, lost his house, lost his job, everything. He's living in a trailer home somewhere now, and because him dabbling in this ruined his whole life because he just the wrong character. So, but anyways, this gentleman, I said, what we have to do is we have to get you on a more positive path. We got to change your internal dialogue because right now it's focused on negative things. So if we change your thinking, we're going to change your frequency. We're going to kind of break that connection. So I said, volunteer at a soup kitchen, go for walks, do anything that makes you feel good about, more positive and better about yourself. So he actually did that. He volunteered at a soup kitchen at a real old stone church in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. But that church was also scheduled to be torn down. So he led a fight to save it from being torn down. And he was on the newspaper. He was on the nightly news. So he had drive. He had purpose. He had something positive that he was doing that changed his internal dialogue. And not only did the entity just disappear after 2 years, his cancer went into remission, but with X-ray, there's no signs he ever had cancer. And that was in 1998. He's still alive today, and he's in the nursing home, but he's still alive, cancer-free.
Well,
and that's it.
I was going to say,
story.
It sounds like then that obviously you have some abilities, some knowledge, some skills in dealing with this, but it also sounds like to a large degree, you're helping the person to do it themselves. You're kind of coaching them into being who they need to be able to fight these things.
Absolutely, because this is what a lot of the and I'm not attacking any religion, although there are religions that are supposed to be of a higher spiritual nature, but they use fear, and I don't like that. I don't like religions that use fear in people, because those are the types of worshipers that end up getting possessed because they live with that fear of all this stuff. But it's a whole different conversation. But we absolutely are participants in the interaction, even if we don't realize it, even if it's our subconscious. We almost allow these things sometimes without knowing it, but we are participants. There is an exchange that happens even if we're unaware of what we are contributing to the situation. But we have to change certain things about ourselves, because we have to be in a certain state in order to be connected to these things. They might jump in every once in a while and to see if they can get a spike out of you, and if they're not getting what they need, they disappear. But they really need, and I tell all my clients and everyone else, and I help a lot of investigators too on their cases. That's mainly what's been keeping me. I've been doing a lot with other investigators and other groups who are kind of stuck with their cases, but it's fear, negativity, and attention, which usually turns into an obsession. So fear, negativity, and attention to the subject, those things need to be eliminated from a negative haunt. When you can do that successfully, and it's not always easy, because you can't tell somebody, hey, don't be afraid when that chair goes flying across your room, if they're totally afraid of it. But it takes them to I really have to sell that idea to them and make them believe, so they have that inner strength. And that's when I find when religion does work, is if the religion has an impact on the person, it's not the effect that it has on the entity, because I've been in so many times where people have tried the religious aspect, and it didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work is because it didn't have the right effect on the individual that was being attacked to get them to a proper place, an emotional state where they could break that connection with this thing, where they're not where this entity wants them to be, and they take off. So when it has worked, it's because the person had the faith in the process, and it got them to where they needed to be. So that's when long time ago, I was connecting these dots and saying, how come it works sometimes, how come it doesn't, and how come people can use different types of tactics, whether it's smudging or this or that. There's all kinds of different techniques. How come all of them work sometimes and sometimes they don't? And they're all just tools to manipulate us and to get us to where we need to be to break that connection. So, and that's what I find. And fortunately, being someone that loves doing this work, and I've been able to help everyone that's reached out to me, and because if I couldn't, I wouldn't continue to do it.
Well, but I think that's part of the reason why you've had such a success rate is because you are empowering the individual. And I think a lot of other folks that are trying to do the paranormal cleanup work are kind of looking at it as, I have this skill myself, or I have this ability, or I have this knowledge. And by taking yourself out of it and kind of putting that power in the person, I can understand why you have such a success rate, because they have to be on board with the plan. They can't it's like anything else. You can't be expecting somebody else to do the work for you.
You're absolutely right. And because I see a lot of like exactly like you said, and some even go into it with almost an ego, and these investigators thinking that they have some kind of control over this situation, and really it has nothing to do that has nothing to do with anything. This person has an interaction going on with an entity, so it's between those two. So I started to realize, how come, like I said, we can't just get rid of this entity if it doesn't want to go, but if we can manipulate the person that it's attacking and get them to change, then that interaction between the two of them is manipulated, it's changed, and the connection's broken. So it really is that way. And I did a case not too long ago, and this group reached out to me. They're kind of well known in the New England area, and they said, can you help us with this? Because it's two homes side by side. They're owned by the same family. Well, one's a home and one's in like an apartment building, but one of the family members lives in one of the apartments in the other side. Anyway, but they got things going on in both places. So in the apartment building, they did a smudging or whatever, and they blocked up this room from the hallway into a baby's nursery, because the baby was screaming in the middle of the night and everything. Whenever they put it in there at certain points, it would start screaming. So they smudged and they blocked off the door, and they said that nobody can pass through this door because they'll let the entity back in and all this other stuff. And I said, well, with all due respect, that's absolutely the wrong approach. I mean, and I didn't belittle them. I talked to them in private, and I said, here's why. I was trying to teach them, because by doing that, you're giving power back to this entity. You're letting him manipulate your life. These things, you can't let them dictate what you do in your life. And once you do that, you're empowering them, and you're giving them exactly what they need. They're more in control. What we need to understand is we actually have more control over them than they do us when we have the right information. So that we stopped that right from get-go. I educated both family members, and also what I found out with the baby. Now this was quite simple that other people had missed. This poor baby, and this is not something that I like to talk about, was abused heavily when it was very, very little, like 4 months, and it was in a body cast. And so it was living with this family that it was a family member, but it wasn't their baby, and they were taking care of it. But anyway, so I said, I went into the room, and I'm sensitive. I'm very scientific, but I'm sensitive to things, and what I was feeling was different than what they were describing. Their interpretation of things, and what I just sensed was an EMF, and not associated with an entity, but like of bad wiring, or you get off of electrical equipment, and I get like a reverse pressure on the top of my head, and I can really tell that that it's something of that nature. So over where the crib was, I put the my EMF detector on the wall, and it just spiked way up high. And so I asked them about the wiring. They said, oh yeah, but the husband was an electrician, and he was in the process of redoing all the wire, but he hadn't got to that wall yet. And I'm telling you, it was like bang, it was pegging. It was huge for uninsulated wiring. It was higher than it should have been. But when the baby was in that bed, that's when it was screaming. But when they brought it over to the changing table over by the door that they close off, it wouldn't scream. I said, so it only screams when it's in this crib? And they said, yes. So it was reacting to the EMF. So I told them to move it away. They did that. Everything's fine. And I educated the family, because one of the homes, the main home, actually, I did encounter something down the basement. It was running from me, but I could tell there was something there. But I educated them, and there was a lot of people living in that home. So there's a lot of personality, and with that, we get a lot of conflict and stuff. So I educated them on all that, and the importance of being positive and relieving the house of any negative stuff. And if you get mad, just go for walks. And I said, and don't obsess about it. And always think about, what's the ghost going to do now? Because if it's in your mind, you're just broadcasting that you want to play or whatever. That's what this thing thinks. You're going to pay attention to me. I'm going to mess around. And so, but I educated both families, and that was that one visit I went there, and I just got a update. It was like a couple years ago. I just got an update from that group, and they said that they're still problem free, so they haven't had any issues since. And that's all I did. After all these other groups went in there and tried to use the other tactics, the holy water and the staging and the smudging and stuff, that didn't work. And I just educated them and got them in line with a more positive path and how to communicate better with one another and live together. And that it was that simple. I mean, so.
But when you're with situations like that, I mean, people create their own negative situations, and I'm sure that a lot of times you're getting called into cases where sometimes there might be something that's happened paranormally, but also you're dealing with a lot of the human element of things too. Does that kind of foster more bad things? What I mean is that it's not necessarily something paranormal that followed somebody or attached itself to somebody, but just the fact that they are creating this negative environment around themselves, and it just so happens that they've also had something paranormal going on as well. But it's the people that are causing this evil more than it is something that could attach themselves to them.
Well, what I found is, when people there's all kinds of different emotional states of being that seem to trigger these parasites. And just because you had a bad day doesn't mean, okay, well, now my house is going to be haunted. It's not the way it works. But there's a prolonged process, and also there's other geological things, components that actually will make it more probable too. And I found that out. But with us, it absolutely is our emotional state that's actually attracting these things to us. So, there's different reasoning for that. So sometimes I have to be a drug counselor, or a marriage counselor, or whatever. And I have a background in all that stuff, So, and so I'm able to get work with people on that. But they lived in the same house for 20 years, but yet it's only been the last month that they were being attacked. So there's got to be a reason for that. So what changed a month ago? And every single time I ask that question, I get the answer. And there's always something that had changed dramatically. And that's what triggered this parasite. That's what this parasite said, okay, this person's in a vulnerable state. I'm going to mess with them. And that's just how it works. And I just get them back to where they need to be, in a more positive path, get them off of whatever, that internal dialogue, wherever they are at the moment is obviously not a good place. So let's change it. Let's manipulate, that and those mechanics, and it works.
I do think that people can kind of create that palpable sense of whatever. So it could be something negative. It could be something positive. I think if people kind of band together, and I talk a lot in my lectures that I give about thought forms and tulpas and things like that, things we're putting out with our own energy. And I'm sure that probably plays a part in what you do too, where, sometimes maybe people are putting out the vibe that even though they don't realize it, they're almost welcoming these things to come in and attach to them. They think that they're safe, or they think that they're living a good life, but they're not realizing that just their day-to-day existence makes them attractive for something to come and feed off of.
Oh, absolutely, exactly. I mean, that's exactly how that works. And I did a case not too long ago where the, the lady, she actually seem to enjoy being a victim. And it's like, you know, I can help you when you're ready for help, but you actually enjoy this, you
Yeah,
know?
when you want to be the center of attention, one way or another, good or bad.
Exactly. So I said, you're looking for it and you're opening yourself up for it and you seem excited by it. But then when something really bad happens, then, oh, but at the same time, she still enjoyed it. She had that victim like mentality. And those are the hardest ones to treat when they just like I said, a victim like mentality, and they seem to enjoy it. Almost sometimes it's attention, and just sometimes it's just because they're used to being a victim. So if I can get them out of that mentality, and it's hard because those people with that are used to being the victim usually have a troubled past, and so you have to really dig deep a lot of times, and so it can be difficult. Like I did, I don't know if yeah. Anyways, let me know if you need to take a break or whatever. But anyway,
Well,
I did.
actually, I made the decision because I was so interested in what you were saying. I totally blew through our network news. So, but I do have to fire off the legal ID. So we'll do
Okay.
that. We'll be back in 10 seconds. Now we're all legal. One thing that we will do in just a few moments, we're going to check in with Kevin Raper, and Shane, we'll keep you on as well for that too. We're just going to find out about the new project that they have with our Gary Patterson's work. Our Gary Patterson was a good friend of the show who passed away a few months ago, so they have a new project. We're going to find out a little bit more about that, but I want to find out a little bit more with you, Shane, about does this have an effect doing this work? I can imagine you probably protect yourself as much as you can, but it still must weigh on you emotionally and psychically and maybe even physically.
um, Not really. The
Really?
only yeah, and the reason for that is I have to put myself in a certain state to keep myself safe, so I don't have to do any type of protection or nothing like that. It's I think the understanding that I have, and I'm really strong in what I believe allows these things and attracts these things. So it literally I never get affected at all. I mean, I've been in cases where people have been everyone's been touched or bumped or whatever, and I end up chasing these things around, and they move away from me, and I just think it's almost like they know I have a pretty good handle of what makes them tick, and I don't say that with any ego whatsoever. I just but I have not been affected ever, and I feel strong that my understanding disallows any type of attack on myself, and it works. So
See, and that's the way that I've always kind of gone into things too, where I've felt that nothing can follow me, nothing's coming into my house. You belong here, you stay here, and so I don't get wrapped up in protection prayers and all that kind of stuff. But there have been little instances sometimes where things have reached out to me. One time actually in my home, but also at other locations that I've been to, entities that belong at, like, for example, there's something at the Lizzie Borden house that is very dark and doesn't like me, and it's actually communicated with me when I'm in other places just to kind of show me that it can. So there's enough there for me to say, okay, I understand why people need to be protecting themselves from it, but I also just, I don't know if it's just my approach and my attitude, but I go into things feeling like it's okay because when I leave here, it's all staying behind me.
right, yeah. And that's that we have to be that way, and it's the ones that are afraid of something following them home. They're broadcasting that emotion, and that's another thing I was thinking about. It's like, how come out of this whole group that went in there to this case before me, I might have gone in to help this group because they got into trouble and they couldn't help the client, but there was one person that had a detachment that followed them home, and they legit had things happening in their house. And so what made that person different than every other group member that didn't have something follow them home? And when I interview them and I did get down deep that person was absolutely afraid. Even if they didn't show it, they still were. So that emotion is picked up. That's why I really believe frequency has a lot to do with this, because they're picking up on an emotional frequency, and that's how it knows who to jump on.
And it doesn't.
Really.
It doesn't have to be an overwhelming sense of fear either, right? It doesn't have to be where I've got to get out of here. It could just be like in the moment, one little glimpse of, okay, this doesn't feel right. Is that just enough for them to grab onto?
Yeah, that definitely gets their attention, and the also the attention that we give them is huge too. All the cases that I do, these people just can't shut it off when they get home, and it's not going to go away. I mean, when you're giving something attention, you're actually giving it energy, and that's what these things thrive on. I mean, really.
Maybe that's why I've been okay, is because I have such a terrible short-term memory that by the time I get home, I'm like, I don't even remember where I was tonight.
Yeah.
Maybe that helps. Well, why don't we check in very quickly? We'll connect here with Kevin, and I'm going to see if I can just keep you guys on together. So, hello, Kevin. Thanks for joining us, at least for a bit here tonight.
How's it going?
We're doing well. We're spooktacular, as we like to say, and you're here with our guest, Shane Sirois, as well. And we wanted to touch base. We wanted to touch base with you because you let us know about. Of course, you are the son-in-law of the late R. Gary Patterson, a great friend of the show, and you found a way to help keep his memory and his work alive.
Yeah, we've been working on the book. He actually started it before he passed away, and my wife, she couldn't be on tonight, but it's his only daughter, and we actually were able to get in touch with Mike Dawson, who was producing the book, and we were able to let him basically finish it because she kind of inherited the rights to everything. Mm-hmm. It went live on Audible about a week and a half ago. It's doing fairly well, because I mean, we haven't been able to promo it. This is you guys are actually the first ones to get any of the promos.
Oh, wow.
Get any access to it. I mean, you all were the ones that he talked about a lot, so we sent it to you guys first.
Well, thank you. We are honored by that, and I have had a chance to listen to some of it, and it is great. I mean, it's the words that Gary wrote, but expressed in a way that take a creepy story that has a true story, but it is creepy nonetheless, and then find a way to even amp that up by somebody taking that story and telling it to you orally. I mean, and that's the thing that I was the most worried about, is that Gary was such a great storyteller that how could you keep with the same tradition that he built in sharing these stories? And I think that this audiobook version of it does a great way of doing that.
Well, and Mike and Gary spent hours on Skype and on the phone. Mike said they would literally spend 2 and 3 4-hour sessions where he would read him a chapter and read how he wanted to do it, and then Gary would put a spin on it and tell him even more stuff that's not even in the book. So, I mean, the book is a little over 9.5 hours, and you can easily sit down and read the book in about a 3 or 4 hour sitting. It's just he extrapolates so much of every story. It's so far in depth.
And one of my favorite parts about Gary's stories is the fact that he had such a reverence for the people that were sharing these stories and the people that were the subject of these stories, and it still even carries through now. And that's something that I think could have easily been lost if it wasn't somebody that was working directly with him. You had to understand his passion for these topics, to talk about these rock and roll legends and curses, to be able to really convey that to the audience.
Oh, yeah. Well, and one of the funniest stories that Mike told me about the book was when he was on Skype with Gary back when they first got started, they were talking about the Robert Johnson chapter. And Gary was literally showing him his jars of dirt from the crossroads with Robert Johnson's things. And Mike was like, that's the creepiest. He's like, I'm glad we were on video, because if I was in the room, I would have left. Yeah. But he was telling him the story using the props from the book.
And of course, was there must have also been, though, some trepidation after Gary's passing to say, what should we do here? How is the best way to keep this going? I'm sure there was a lot of discussion about whether or not you wanted to see this project continue, or was it just automatically like, we have to make sure that we finish this?
Oh, it was a no-brainer. Oh. We were trying to find out. Mike reached out to us, and we knew he was working on it, but we had no idea who Mike was. And we were able to basically, this is what's kind of funny, is Chris Jericho is actually the person that put us all in touch.
Oh, okay.
Because Gary interviewed Chris, and then Mike had the first 5 chapters done and was like, I really, really want to finish this, but he had to put it on hold. And within the past month, he hammered out the last half of the book because it was all on a legal hold until we could say that my wife had inherited the rights, because he had no idea what to do. But he immediately just started hammering it out. Like, he worked tirelessly. I mean, we think it sounds great. And the very end of it has got a dedication section to talk about Gary's life, and then turns around and he dedicates it to his only granddaughter, Sydney.
And and nobody appreciates rock and roll and the paranormal as much as Chris Jericho too. So it's really cool that he got involved in that as well. Is he going to contribute at all to the audiobook project in terms of like any kind of audio forward or anything?
Well, we've already got it published, like it's already online on Audible, but I've sent everything to Fozzie, and then he's supposed to be writing something back for us.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, so you mentioned it is on Audible, so if people want to get it, they can just go there and find it and download it. And I've never really done audiobooks through Audible, but everybody tells me that it's so easy to do, and it just puts it right on your phone, and wherever you are, you can just connect and listen.
Well, and if you there's a thing going with Audible. We have 2 or 3 different ways you can find us. We're on Twitter. It's just at Darkside Book. And that's where you can find, if you tweet a lot, you can hop on there, chase it down, and just basically link straight through the Twitter account to the Audible. And then if you join Audible, you get so many books for free just for joining. I'm not sure how many, but you can download it as a free book also. So I mean, effectively, if you just want to check it out, you can join Audible, download it, cancel Audible, and you still get to keep the book.
Excellent. Well, we definitely want people to check it out, and of course, with all the great stories that Gary shared with us over the years, it's great that they can live on. And that was what Chris Balzano and I were most worried about when Gary passed. Is, we need to find a way to keep his work going and to keep what he did going, because it touches a lot of people, but it also meant so much to him. And
absolutely.
So I can only imagine that every time somebody downloads this and starts listening to it, somewhere Gary's kind of watching over them and smiling
and laughing hysterically.
He's like, well, I guess we finally figured out that technology.
Yeah, he was a character when it comes to things like that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for keeping us up to date with everything. And of course, somewhere down the line, we want to have yourself and your wife come on with us, and we can talk more about Gary's legacy and how you plan to keep it alive.
Sure, not a problem. Just let us know.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a great night.
You too.
That is Kevin Raper. And again, you can check out darksidebook.com, and also through Audible. If you want to be able to check that out, you can download it, listen to it. As you said, you can download it, cancel the Audible if you want, and keep the book. But of course, there's so many great audiobooks out there. I've never been an audiobook guy myself. I don't know, Shane, if you have ever, I'm sure driving around, doing all the cases that you do, it's beneficial to have something like that.
Yeah, no, I don't do them either.
I don't know.
But I think they're great. I think I'm on one of them, on an audiobook, but no, I don't. I've never listened to one.
I don't know why I don't do it, though, because I listen to podcasts. I listen to old-time radio shows. Like, all these things, it's pretty much the same idea of listening to an audiobook. I just have never really gotten into it, but I'll definitely be doing it with Gary's book, because I've heard just some of it already, and it's great stuff.
Awesome.
So we were talking before about your own personal way of taking on these cases and how, you're saying that they don't really kind of affect you at all. But also, it must affect you in some degree to have to deal with the people. There's got to be some times when you have to say, all right, I don't know how much more I can take of dealing with people that just don't listen, that don't follow my advice. I'm sure you've probably had some repeat customers. Even though you were able to get rid of these things, you probably had people that have kind of come back to you and said, it happened again.
No.
Really?
No. Yeah, all the cases I've done, once, I've maybe up to tops of like 3 or 4 visits. I'm able to kind of get through to them, get them on board with what the plan is, and it's worked every time. Only once recently, I had a guy who was so set in thinking that we had to go there and do this big, I'm part Native American and mostly French, but Native American too. He was part Native American, and he wanted this whole big Native American smudging thing going on. He had already gone through a pound of sage or something himself, and it just continued to get worse. He was convinced that things were, going on there. I went there. I never felt anything. This guy also too was a cancer patient who was struggling with that, but at first seemed nice enough guy. But I was told by other groups that try to help him, who put me in touch with him, that he becomes belligerent, and he all this other stuff. He called this woman investigator, who was also, I guess, a medium or whatever. He insulted her really, really bad. He kicked other people out of his house and stuff like that. So when I went there, I didn't sense anything in that home whatsoever. I did sense that he was troubled, and but he really believed this. I know he really believed that something was going on in this house. I never felt anything. I'm pretty strong where I don't think there was, but I was going to give him the benefit of the doubt and go through the process anyway. But he wouldn't listen. He goes, "Oh yeah, but I am a positive person." I'm like, I'm as positive as I can be, and he wasn't. He was an angry person. He picked up a phone when someone called, and he was just irate and angry to everybody. And hearing the stories of how he treated other investigators, and also him, calling, leaving voicemails in the middle of the night, telling me that all this other stuff is going on, and I need to get back down there, and all this other. I mean, he just he was an angry person. He didn't want to admit that he was, and he was part of the problem. And so we weren't going to be able to work together, basically. I mean, I definitely could have fixed this problem. I really don't believe there was a problem other than himself. And then here's another thing. He goes, because I said, you got to take your mind off the situation too. You can't be thinking about what's going to happen next. You can't be watching the shows. You got to, go in a different path and stop thinking about this stuff. Oh no, I don't think about this stuff at all. And I don't watch the shows or anything else like that. My next visit, he went on and on and on about all these paranormal shows that he had binge watched. So it's like another guy I had. He goes, oh yeah, I don't watch the shows. I don't do nothing. I go into his room, and there's like a 2-inch thick book about demons, on his night dresser. And, so, like I said, we are participants in this, and he just wasn't, this guy was just really strong headed, and he just wasn't gonna listen to me. He thought he was fine, everything. He wasn't doing anything wrong, but he was his own worst enemy. So, he's somebody I could have helped, but I just cut him off. And I just said, I'm wasting my time with you. I don't think you want help. I think that was the other thing was him on disability, and he was young enough to work. He was older than me, but didn't work because of his cancer and everything else like that. But he just I think he was just a really bored, angry person, and he just needed people around. And we hit it off at first, and he just wanted me there all the time to hang out with them, and and stuff. And it was just,
we always talk about that, how that can happen with the people who are seeking paranormal help. The ones who are reaching out to teams and saying, I think I have something in my house. And we always worry about the ones that are attention getters, and that's what their whole purpose is. But I think that also happens with some of these paranormal research groups and investigators too, where they're coming in and they're just trying to make themselves look good or make themselves feel good. And maybe maybe they're faking it, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're just wrong about their abilities or what have you. But it seems like there's a good chance that investigators can come in and almost attach something onto somebody by doing things the wrong way or by doing things for the wrong reasons, that they can kind of come in and conjure up this negativity and then leave it behind when they go home.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, it's been quite a few times where I've gone in after, and I'm talking some very well-known, famous, if you will, investigators and demonologists and stuff like that, who went in there and did just that. And a lot of times, because they want the evidence, they want this, they want that, the other thing they want, that they spend so much time on evidence. Evidence is great, but here's what I don't like to do when I'm in there to help somebody who's actually being attacked. Evidence is the last thing on my mind, because if I'm trying to seek evidence, I'm also giving attention to this entity, and I'm giving it more power. So I don't even focus it when somebody's really being attacked hard. If we're just talking about an active home and they just want evidence, and that's why I'm there. Then yeah, let's do that.
Right.
But I'll do it in a safe way. Or if I go into a place where no one lives, which I rarely do, I'm usually working with people, but you know, I don't do that. And what a lot of these groups do is because they want something to make themselves famous or popular, or whatever. So they go in there and they focus on nothing but the attention. Sometimes they even, because they don't have a proper understanding, or they lack a proper understanding of what's actually going down. They're missing other mechanics. They're missing other things that it could be because they don't have a full, spectrum of information or whatever. So if they can't explain it, then it's got to be a demon. So they tell the people, oh, you got a demon, you got many demons. And you know what that does to the person living in that home? It's like, whoa, you just multiplied their fear level. It made things worse. And so I've gone in after so many groups that have done that. And I don't understand when you're telling people that you can help them and you don't have a full, understanding of everything to explain it away. It could be other things. And I could tell you a story that happened in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But you're going in there. If you're telling them you can help them, you have to be able to understand and diagnose so many other things. Because if you go in there and you don't know what's going on, you can't just go right to the demon theory. You have to say, I just don't know, and reach out to somebody else, because you just can't throw a statement out like that to these homeowners that are already probably traumatized. You're just making it worse. So.
But they do. They throw that word out so easily, especially if there's a camera there and they're filming it to put up on their YouTube page. That word gets thrown around so easily, and people don't take into the account the possibility that sometimes, like, there's just bad things that go on. There's bad elemental energies. There's bad people who have passed on and are staying behind. And not everything that seems scary or negative is demonic.
No. I mean, there was a book, Haunted House Diaries by William Hall, who I was a big part of that book and the investigation that happens in that book. And I also wrote some things that are in that book. But this lady in Bridgeport, Connecticut, read this book and said, hey, so she contacted William Hall and says, I got this house and nobody's lived there for 2 years. But it's evil. It's absolutely evil. And she had other groups, one well-known group from, that area and stuff like that, they're disbanded now. And the reason is for this case, but because of this case. Now she reached out to these guys, and they went in there, and I think there was like 2 married couples or something like that, and then there was other individuals. They set up shop for like 2 weeks, and they investigated this home, from what I'm being told. And they said that there was, it was really evil. There was demons there. Their evidence that they posted on YouTube, I viewed it. None of it was real. It was a lot of just dust floating around in the basement. I even showed Bill Hall when I got there with a camera. I said, this is what they captured. When he first saw it on the view, the view screen on the back of my camera, he's like, oh, look at that. And I'm like, no, now look outside. And you saw the dust floating in front of the lens, and that's what they got. And I know there are, real orbs and stuff like that, but these were definitely not what they were capturing. Also a bang when they were in the basement. They had a video going on. There was a bang upstairs. I recreated that. It was the screen door. Somebody had come in or opened the door or whatever, and slammed it, and it was identical. So their evidence was nothing, but they were absolutely convinced that they got to a state where they were all so just afraid, and they also started fighting with each other, and they blamed it on the demon putting them against each other and stuff like that. The 2 married couples actually ended up divorcing, from what I'm told. The group disbanded. Their website got brought down, and this is a group that had been around for a while, and they blamed this case for destroying everything. So finally she reaches out to William Hall. Bill Hall asked me, you got to do this with me. So I said, sure. We went down there, and I did one visit. We spent a lot of time there, and then I went down again and did it again, just to just to confirm what I was diagnosing. So what I found was the home. Oh, there was no electricity to the home. It was shut off at the meter box outside, so no electricity inside the home. But yet there was huge amounts of EMF in the kitchen, and in the basement below the kitchen, which is what they were calling like the dark evil, the dark corner of hell in the basement. Now the lady's husband that lived there, he owned the house before he married her. He had a previous wife who, and they ended up getting divorced because this guy, I guess, was abusive and stuff like that. He remarried this lady. He would get violent, like just full of rage and hostile and stuff like that. His son did the same thing. He ended up destroying the whole finished basement downstairs with a sledgehammer. He would get angry for no reason. They would leave the home, and they would both be just charming and wonderful people. They get back to the house, and within a half hour, they were just full of rage, and they blamed it on demons. Now, so when I walked in there, and I could really sense that there was EMF in this home. So I, with my meter, I huge in the kitchen, huge spike, sometimes almost maxing out my meter. But most of the time, even the prolonged level is not healthy for us at all. Anything over 25 on my meter is not good. But it was usually like up around 75 and things like that. So down in the basement, same thing. I end up seeing an access panel because I knew what I was going to be looking for. If the power shut off to the house, I don't believe there's an entity in this home because I did not encounter one on both visits. Then I'm going to go to where the grounding rod cable comes into the home and attaches to the plumbing. So, you may know this, but maybe some of the listeners don't. Our homes have a grounding rod that goes into the ground and attaches to the plumbing and the utility. So if it gets hit by lightning, it goes out through that grounding rod into the ground. Now, they sometimes can have EMF feeding back into them, even when the power's turned off, through like maybe a faulty transformer that's nearby. But in this case, there was also a business in the back. It could have been coming from that, but something was faulty either with the transformer or some other home or business where it was back feeding through the grounding rod into their house, into their plumbing, and right in that dark corner of hell, and right above that was the kitchen. And those were the hot spots. That's where everyone got angry. That's where everyone, had issues in those areas. So I explained that to the lady, and she said, yeah, but the other group said there was a demon. I said, you know what? And I'm not saying that at one point you didn't because of the negativity that was happening inside the home. You just very well may have had an entity when you were living here because of the emotional state of your husband and everything else like that. And then you being under stress from the way he was treating you. But I said, there's nothing there now. And I don't think there was anything here when the other group was here either. I think they reacted to these strong levels of EMF because these strong levels of EMF will cause you to see shadowy movements in your peripheral. Through prolonged exposure to EMF, you'll start seeing hues like shadowy figures in front of you that you absolutely think that are some kind of entity. It messes up the firing between your eyes and your brain. And now also it also kills our immune system. It can cause our cells to mutate and cause cancer or tumors. Now, her husband had rare form of cancer he developed in this home, while he was living there, and he died. He died from it, and I believe the home killed him. And so I told the lady that, I said, and not to be, I really think that this house had everything to do with your husband becoming sick. And she goes, well, actually, she goes, I developed the same tumors, but mine weren't cancerous. She goes, and it's such a rare form of cancer. She goes, but I had those same tumors, but mine weren't cancerous. His was, and he succumbed to them. And I said, so, how many meds were you on when you lived here? She goes, I was on 12. I said, how many are you on now that you're not living here anymore? She goes, I'm not on any. She goes, once in a while I'll take a Motrin or an Advil. And she goes, and I haven't felt this good in a while. I said, that's my point. This is a sick home. There's no demon here. You need an electrical engineer, and you need someone to come in here and fix it. I actually know how to fix that problem, but I'm not gonna go about doing that, because
insurance reasons and all that stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but so for just like you said, and that's what I was getting at was when we go into the home and we tell people we can help them, if we can't if we don't have an explanation for what's going on, we can't just jump to demon. So I like to have an understanding. I mean, I own my own remodeling company. I'm a licensed pipe fitter as well. I know about plumbing. I know about electrical. I also have a background in human services and psychology. So, and the only reason why I have all this background is I did this on purpose, so I would be well rounded, and I'd be able to help people with any different explanation of what's going on in their home, because the paranormal is number one to me. So if I'm going to go into people's homes, I want to make sure I had the experience in all different aspects.
Well, and also the paranormal doesn't pay, so to have knowledge of things that do, it's like it kind of works out pretty well that way. Yeah. Is there ever been a case that you talked about your success rate with this, but has there ever been a case that really took kind of even more work than usual? Was there anything that was ever just the one that you thought, hey, if ever I was going to have one that I didn't succeed on, this would be the one?
I mean, if I'm trying to think, there's never been one that there's never been one that wasn't pretty simple. There was one recently that was a little bit more challenging, and so but it's still something that I fixed with 2 visits, but based on all the components that was taking place, that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, well, maybe this is going to be a little harder than usual. And I'll tell you what happened was, where I live in southern New Hampshire, some of my business cards are around, or and some people kind of know me. Plus, my vehicle is lettered with my my paranormal research, my trueghost.com, and all that. So everyone, they know who I am and everything and what I do, and small town and whatnot. So somebody grabbed one of my business cards out of a pizza shop that had just moved into the area, and the reason for that was that they owned another home in northern Massachusetts that they had to flee because they had things going on there, a lot of objects moving, doors slamming, their ceiling fan spinning by itself constantly. They were seeing things outside, climbing trees in the woods, and also affecting their marriage. But when it ripped their son out of bed, he was I think they said he was 4 years old. They hear thump, thump, and then he starts crying. They run in there. He's on the floor. And he said, the man with the red face pulled me out of bed. He said, the kid said he saw a red face rise up from the foot of his bed and pull him down. And they looked down. He actually had red handprints on his ankles and bruising the next day. And so they moved out of the home. But not before having, they brought in a group that had a television show, or I don't know if they still do, but a long-running television show, who had an associate group of theirs they sent over. That was very ineffective. Then they had another person that's famous or whatever, because they didn't know where else to reach, so they were looking at TV and
right.
They knew that, nowhere else to turn, so they found this other group, which everyone would know who it was, but that group came down, that individual who had a group, and that didn't really work. And then they reached out to a demonologist that a lot of people might know who he is, so they went there and they said it actually was effective. It did a good job. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks or something like that, where it was pretty quiet. And I said, but it came back, and it came back with a vengeance, right? They said, absolutely. They said it was worse than ever when it came back. It was just all of a sudden, just boom, full force out of nowhere. There was no buildup. It just came back like full force. And the reason for it was that process didn't have a long, lasting effect on them as individuals. It didn't fix the problems that initiated that interaction to begin with. It did enough to make them they felt confident in the person doing what they did, because the person does a good job of selling that process, but they didn't treat the initial problems with the people, so therefore the problem returned. And so basically, so they left the house after the kid. That was enough. So we're out of here. So now they have 2 mortgages. which was causing even more issues with them. But they said now they got things happening in their new home too once in a while. But they were blaming everything. So a box fell off the shelf and hit the guy on the shoulder. Well, it must have been them again, But that's what happens to people. They blame everything on it when it's going on. They can't get out of their head. Like I said, internal dialogue has a lot to do with that attention. So, so normally when I fix a home, I fix the people. I treat the people, but the people aren't living in this home. So now I have to do both because if it is affecting both houses, and here's another thing too. These parasites will cling if they do stay in a home that nobody has lived in, that people aren't living in, and there still is a parasite there, because normally the parasite will leave and they'll follow the person that they were haunting, or they'll find food somewhere else, basically. But if the parasite is still in a vacant home, it's feeding off of a traumatic event that may have happened on that property, and so we find that all the time. But so it's very rare for the parasites to stick around in a home that's vacant. So I had to look at a lot of things that was going on. I could sense that there was a big marital issue with this couple. I could just see the body language between the two of them, even though they were trying to hide it from me. They didn't. I try to loosely stimulate them to open up about those things, but they were uncomfortable, so I didn't push the issue. So it was going to be hard to treat them because I knew that was a big part of it. So I had to talk in generalization, and but now how am I gonna treat the other home that they're not living in? So basically, what started this haunt was the guy had moved in. The lady who owned the house previously. This guy, who I noticed had a real quirky. He was a nice guy, but quirky, paranoid personality. And like I said, those are the worst, especially if they become obsessed or interested in the paranormal, and they can't shut it off up here because that's how their brain works, and they're always like, and that's how he was. He was the one that had the book of demons on his nightstand when he told me he doesn't watch the shows. He doesn't have an interest. I walk into his room and there's a book naming all the demons. It's 2 inches thick, and so so I knew there was something more going on. So I questioned him on that, and he goes, well, yeah, I'm kind of interested because when I did move in with her, he goes, I started seeing Native American looking things in other creatures crawling in the trees. He goes, but I could see Native Americans running through the bushes and stuff, and on the edge of the properties, and so he became obsessed. He started doing his own investigation outside. He'd stay up all night, outside with cameras, and he would see things, and then he couldn't shut it off from his head, and so when he was feeding it so much attention, then a parasite showed up because there was already marital issues going on. His attention to the subject was unhealthy because he had a paranoid personality. So it wasn't the Native Americans that were causing him negative stuff going on in his home. It was a new parasite that was invited in by what he was doing that he shouldn't have been doing, and what he was given to the situation. So so when my first visit there was just to kind of feel it out and come up with a game plan. And the second visit I was there 3 times, but I only actually did anything 2 times. The second visit was a kid that contacted me that wanted me to mentor him, and I spent a lot of time talking to him first, making sure that he was of right character and he wasn't gonna get into trouble. And he seemed like a great kid, and so we went there, and we walked in there, and he started to say, well, I can definitely feel something in here, and I said, do you think that's bad? Wait till you go in the master bath, because when I was here before, that thing was hiding from me in the master bath. And so we walked in the room, and I told him, I said, just be, I want you safe, so I said, just stand over there, And so he stood over on the other side, the far end of the bath, and the door was open just a little bit. And so I went over to the door, and I was going to open it up the rest of the way. And I was reaching out to it, and the door just flies open, bang, slams up against the wood paneling. The shears just fly up to the ceiling, and then you feel like just this rush, run right by us. And then the door to the bedroom slammed shut behind, lock, with us in the room. So it was shutting us in, basically. It didn't want a part of us. And, so there definitely was things going on here. I felt this thing too. It was really, really strong. So, but now how are we going to get rid of it? So what I did was, in normally, like I said, I manipulate the mechanics in emotional frequencies with the people and stuff like that while they're not living here. I did that anyways with them in their home, but I also had to do something here. So what I did was I employed the Native American that were there in their own place and time. They're living their life, and there was a strong body of water which we find really what we call paranormal flap areas, where a lot of people will call residual hauntings. I call parallel world bleedovers or whatever. And so I basically I did being part Native American and everything. I did a ceremony to get the natives to accept the home because here's about fact I should have mentioned. It was a trailer home, trailer park. This was a double wide trailer, actually a really nice one too. But on this property was it was a historical plaque for it and all that. There was a bloody battle between two tribes who wanted the land because it was good fishing and whatnot. And so there was a dramatic occurrence that happened on this property. So I did a ceremony to gain acceptance of the home and the family. And it took me like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was not something that was just short. And it was all done in traditional way. And when I was done, and it was just like, the TV shows, it was like a dimmer switch was just slowly turned up and the house just got brighter and brighter and brighter. And I called the guy who was waiting at a diner. I think he stopped at a diner. I told him I didn't want him. This is the guy that owned the house. And I said, I just don't come here until I'm done. I'll let you know. And so I called him and he walked in. He's like, oh my God. He goes, this house has never felt like this. He goes, it feels so good in here. He goes, it smells good. And now they had tried to rent or sell it the whole time. And so every time somebody was interested in it, something happened, it would fall through. They even had a blind lady that was led through the home. She was legally blind. And she said she didn't want to live there because it was too dark. And so, but after I did everything, within 5 days, they had all kinds of offers on the house. And then a guy that wanted to rent it, they decided to rent it. And he lives there problem free with no issues at all. There's a couple of neighbors, though, that are having issues now. But, and I'm just being told that by them. So they didn't know I was there. So they didn't know to reach out to me because the couple didn't want anyone to know that we were doing this. So I went there at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and did everything early. So while people were sleeping, so that was, that worked. Unfortunately, the couple divorced and they parted ways. But that was long after, probably like a year and a half, 2 years after I was done doing, fixing the other house. But I still think that they were problem free at their home. It's just their marital issues or whatever just got the best of them, I guess. So
but I mean, that can happen anyway. I mean, sometimes things just happen in life. It doesn't mean that this stuff has any kind of impact in it, or even just dealing with the aftermath of it, or dealing with the side effects of it can have that effect on relationships. There is a question from the Professor Eric in the chat room, and you had mentioned having a background in psychology, but he wants to know, are you a psychologist or a counselor as part of what it is that you do?
No, I don't have a degree or nothing like that. I've had positions where I had to employ those certain techniques and that involved with psychology and stuff like that. And I'm a student and I'm of it, but I don't have a degree. But I believe I have a pretty good understanding. And in any case where I don't have a good understanding, I'm never afraid to reach out to somebody that may have. And because the number one thing is the safety and the of my client. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we did that once. We reached out to a well-known psychologist that's in our network with a gentleman who got in trouble. The one I mentioned in Woonsocket that I brought down, and who told me he was more experienced and And Paulino and I, we reach out to somebody that's in our network who's a well-known psychologist, and to help him out, because us being close to him, we needed somebody else involved that where he could take the word of, so it's not just these two guys that he's known for a little while. It's somebody else with a degree, and you know what I mean. So, but she told him the same thing we were telling him, and no, I don't have a degree in psychology, but I have a strength in it, though, I believe, but like I said, if someone needed just solely just a psychologist, then we'd hook them up with psychologists. I mean, but I just have to use techniques to get people to be able to. Actually, I dealt with a psychologist. If you want to hear another story, that was kind of a tough one.
Sure. Well, just before I forget to let you know, Professor Eric said he is going to reach out to you on the number that's on your site. So,
okay,
yeah,
great.
No, absolutely. I'd love to hear the story.
Yeah. So there was a case in Massachusetts that let's see. Actually, Paulino, I forget how he got hooked up with this case. But this lady, she herself was a psychologist, specializing in people who were sexual predators and stuff like that. She treated those people, and she had all kinds of degrees, and I think she was going for her. I don't know, I forget, but anyways, so she had all kinds of degrees in this, but so she believed that she had a demon in her house, and something was attacking her, and so she had there was one group that went there. Oh, okay. There was a group down her way that went there. They were trying to help her, but realized they were over their heads. So they were a fan of Paulino's radio show. They contacted him. He went there. He started to suggest to her what he believed was going on. She became like irate, like, how dare you talk to me? I'm a psychologist. How dare you talk to me like that? I'm not stupid, and all this other stuff. And he goes, no, I'm not trying to imply that. He goes, but I'm just sharing my experience and what I some of the flags I see here, So she basically kicked him out of the house, and so he called me, and he's like, I really think you can help her, but even though she was mean to me, I really think she needs help, and so I forget. Oh, it was the group that originally she was helping. They got in touch with me, and then I ended up going down there, and I was interviewing her, and I knew after Paul's experience I had to be kind of sneaky with my questions. You know what I mean? So basically what happened, I got her to spill a lot of stuff. She had a job in a prison, and she was as a psychologist. I forget the exact name of what she was doing, but it was for sexual predators, and she was a psychologist, and she was working in this prison. Well, she ended up falling in love with one of these jerks, and when he got out of prison, she moved him into her home. Now she found, after him living there for a little while, she found a satanic whole setup and satanic Bible and everything in the basement where he was doing the satanic stuff, rituals and everything. So that just, oh my God, she's like, and she brought it up to him or whatever, and he tried to make it like it was no big deal. Then he started to rape her all the time and abuse her, and she found more satanic stuff, so she ended up getting him removed. So she kicked him out. But she believed that he put a curse on her. So now every time a hawk showed up in her yard, she said it was because of him, and it's a curse. And she said they were seeing like a shadow guy walk down the stairs and everything else like that. But she only saw that a couple times. She refused to go into her own bedroom anymore because that's where he used to rape her. I went into that bedroom. She had writing all over the wall saying that I am a good mommy. The name of her son, I don't remember. Let's just say John. John acts naughty because that's who he is. It's not my fault. On every single wall, there was writings like that. Just her telling herself that she's okay and it's everyone else that's wrong. On her mirror was, what did it say? Hold on or get dragged or something like that in lipstick all over her mirror. there was just all kinds of crazy things, reference to things attacking her, but mostly it was all about her son or her telling herself she's a good mom. And I'm like, this is not the behavior of a psychologist. I mean, this is somebody that needs a psychologist, you know. So now, one of her biggest complaints was she was getting real bad migraines too, and she believed it was because of the demon and all this other stuff. So again, she had looping going into her grounding rod, and right where she slept now in her living room was exactly where the ground cable came in and attached to her plumbing, and that's where I was getting huge levels down there. And then when I told her this, she goes, no, and I put the EMF detector right where she laid her head, and it was like 175, you know, it was way up there. So I said, you know, and also this is causing your paranoia. I think she already had psychological issues, but I know this wasn't helping it because of what EMF will do to us. It can cause us, not all of us, it has different effects on us, you know, on different people, but this was certainly making her problem a lot worse. So this is going to be a hard case. And what I did for her was she was a little reluctant with what I was saying at first, but she ended up opening up. Because I was able to speak to her in a way and take the right kind of path that I thought I was going to need to take with her, and it worked. She actually listened and she put down her defense, and she says, "Okay, well, I'll try." But you know what I found out was she was going to jail anyway, so we lost contact. She went to jail because of child neglect, and also her home was being taken away from her too because she lost her job. She got followed. Her license got revoked from practicing because they found out that she moved this inmate into her home and everything else like that. Then her young children got caught using drugs, and you know, like nasty drugs, and there was something else too that she did, but she ended up going to jail. So however she turned out, I don't know, but she did open up towards the end, and I was hopeful, you know, somewhat, but I knew she was definitely going to be a tough one. I forgot about her. So
yeah, I mean, I guess I mean, I know that you feel like you can take care of these problems, but also like people have to want to they have to want to be taken care of too. If they're going to keep inviting it back in, you know, it's just going to start a vicious cycle where, you know, you're constantly having to go back and helping because they're keeping themselves open and they're keeping themselves as basically food for these things.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, some of those people have victim-like mentality, and some of them like the attention. And so, you know, those are the people that are always going to fall victim to themselves and their own behavior. So it's like, you know, what can you do for them? You really can't. But the people that really do want the help, it works, you know, every time. The approach that I've kind of pinned down, you know, and you know, and I'm lucky too because some of this information came when I was 10 years old and I became sick, and I went through an experience where there was information given to me during that process that I wouldn't have been able to dream up at a 10-year-old. It has in part of that information is what I use to help people. It's something that I don't hear from other people, and it's something that I would not have been able to, you know, just make up in my own 10-year-old mind, and it's something I didn't fully understand at the time either. It wasn't until, you know, a little bit further down the line where the light bulb went off and said, "Oh, okay, that's what that meant," you know, and it works. And so it's not just, you know, I'm fortunate to have that information too, and just putting that process to identify trends too was very helpful. And I encourage everyone to do that, you know, to don't just look at the obvious, don't just look at the subject, look outside of that, you know. Because you're going to find there's a lot more going on and a lot more components to the problem than you think there are. There's sometimes several things that can play into this, you know.
Well, we only have a few moments left in the show, but I have to ask. I can't just leave it there. I got to ask you what that experience was when you were 10 years old. As much of it as you think you can share with us.
Yeah. Basically, I got sick, and doctors really didn't know why, and I won't get into too much detail about bad mouth family members, but basically I was um, I was put in a room, and I couldn't eat or drink, and it was that way for like a month, and I got weaker and weaker to the point where I couldn't move. I could talk, I could move my eyes and turn my head and move my fingertips, but that was it. I couldn't get out of bed and do anything. Things started to happen around me more and more. Like if I got hot, the window would open up and the air would come blowing in the room, and like when I could hear like a thunderstorm coming, I'm like, man, I wish I could feel some of that breeze, and the window would open on its own. And then the same thing, if I got cold, it would shut. But then one night I was achy. Your body, when you're not eating, your body's eating itself. And I was achy and uncomfortable, and all of a sudden one night I was totally like just calm, and everything felt great. I felt like I was just part of everything around me, and that's literally the best way I can explain it. I literally felt everything around me, and it felt good for the first time in a long time. And then I noticed there's somebody at the foot of my bed, like they're sitting on something, but there was nothing for them to be sitting on, but almost like it was. And this guy says to me, he goes, "Don't worry, this is happening for a reason." He goes, "We're trying to reach you through dreams, but that didn't work. So now this has to happen because you need to be brought here so you can help people, because that's your purpose." And so now that reoccurring, he said he was trying to reach me through dreams. Ever since I was little, I had a reoccurring dream almost every night that my family was camping at a campground, and there was this raging river that was really wide, and it was just going really fast. And over on the other side, there was people there. There was a campfire, and there's Native Americans. There's different people, walks of life, and different ages, and they were waving me over. It was like they were celebrating that I was there, and they wanted me to go over there, and I wanted to go over there. And every time I did, my mother would grab me in my dream and pull me into the camper and said, "No, you can't go over there," But I was like, "But I wanted to," and so it was always disrupted. But so I believe he was referring, because he was one of the people that was in my dream on the other side, the one that was sitting by my bed telling me all this. And then he told me things that I won't go into right now, but the things that I've used to help people. I was given information. So that night, actually, my mother and stepfather came in. I actually watched my stepfather pick me up and carry me down the stairs, and I was falling behind them, and I could see myself and whatnot. I wake back up in my body in the car, then and I pass out again, and then I follow them carrying me into the emergency room. I was behind them, higher. I was probably like maybe 20 foot in the air, and just kind of like going behind them at the same speed. Then I saw myself laying on the table in the emergency room, and I watched them around me, and then I wake back up in an elevator, and then I remained that way the rest of the stay. But after being in ICU for a few, and then like I don't know, like 3 or 4 days, and then one night I was watching football, and I was still really weak and sick. This nurse comes in, and she sat by my head, and she was stroking my hair, and she's like, "I miss doing this with my son." She goes, "I used to watch this stuff with my son all the time, and I really miss it." And I ended up falling asleep, and which I wanted to watch the game, but she comforted me so much, I ended up falling asleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night, because I used to come in my room with a flashlight to make sure I could wake up and check on me and stuff. And so they did. And I said, "Where's the other nurse?" She goes, "What other nurse?" And I explained, her, and she goes, No, honey. She goes, I'm the only one on this floor tonight. She goes, yeah. So, and this lady, she was dressed like a nurse, but differently. And the other kicker too was the doctors they ran all kinds of tests. They never. Oh, she told me, she goes, and before I fell asleep, she goes, "Don't worry, because now you're going to be okay. Everything's going to get better now." And so when and like I said, the kicker was that the doctors ran all kinds of tests. They never knew what was wrong with me. They never found out. They didn't know what was wrong with me. But when she said I was going to get better, I did. And I was, I was in there for, I don't a couple weeks or something like that. But I ended up getting better and going home.
Well, and it puts you on the path that you're on now. How can people reach out to you if they need your services, if they want to talk to you and see if you can help them out?
Truehost.com is my website, trueghost.com. My email address is on there. My cell phone number is on there. And feel free. I'm going to try to do better updating my appearances and stuff on there because I kind of stink at doing that. But I'll try to get better about that too. But yeah, that's the best way to get me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right, and thanks to Paul for recommending that we reach out to you too. It was perfect because this is a very understood. That doesn't really make any sense, but it's a less understood aspect of what it is that goes on. So I'm glad that you could enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much, Shane.
Thanks, man.
Have a great night. That is Shane Sirois. And again, trueghost.com is his website. If you want to check him out, that does it for us for this week. We'll be off next week for our Bridgewater Triangle Mysterious Middleborough event. You can join us still. Get your tickets at SpookySouthCoast.com if you want to join us next Saturday night. Until then, for Matt, for Stephanie, for Chris, for Ashley, for everybody that's not here tonight, and then for myself and the Silent Assassin, we want you all to stay spooktacular.